What's up guys, V here. I wanted to release a video today targeted towards our new Vrising player base. With 1.0 around the corner and the recent PS5 announcement, I figured there's bound to be a lot of new vamps looking to dive into the action. I recently took a break from the game myself and found myself having to readjust to some of these PvP concepts, so if you're a returning player, hopefully there'll be something here for you too. In today's video, we'll be covering PvP mindset, CDR management, cancel faking, and spacing. I may release a future video discussing weapon combos, but if you're looking for a video on that now, I'd recommend Chappell's video on it, which I've linked in the description below. If you don't know him, he's a solid EU player and has a lot of build guides on his channel as well, so go ahead and go check him out. Alright, so first things first, dive into settings and turn off toggle equip mode and camera shake. Camera shake is pretty self-explanatory, but having toggle equip mode off will prevent you from swapping to your claws in between switching weapons. After that, go ahead and set up your preferred weapon swap keybinds. You'll also want to be sure to bind your cancel animation button somewhere easily accessible. Having that one set up will allow you to stop yourself mid-animation for certain spells or weapon abilities, saving you from those awkward misclick moments. More on this later. One more nod towards Chappell's video before we dive in. In his video, he has a lot of great points and he recommends new players start out by learning greatsword followed by pistol, but personally, I suggest you get comfortable with mace first, followed by the greatsword after. Keep in mind guys that ultimately the choice is yours and you can start with whatever you want, but my argument for mace is that it's pretty much the only weapon in the game that effortlessly combos off itself. Learning proper spacing for its EQ combo is also going to be great for early punish during the copper phase of a fresh server wipe.
Don't kill someone else!
Now that that's out of the way, let's break into our first topic today, which is PvP mindset. So often, whether it be an open world or a dual server, I see new players doing what I like to call the S key shuffle. A fight breaks out, and the first thing this player is doing is backing up and throwing every CD they have on rotation. Now, make no mistake with my words here, if you're at a disadvantage in open world, or if you're caught off guard, definitely want to be looking for an opening and get back to base as quickly as you can. But if your intent is to fight, then playing like this is only going to harm you. Not only is it very easy to gap close in Vrising with tools like Heart Strike, Greatsword Q, and even just Wolf or the Vampire Horse, but if you're constantly playing like this, you're going to have no clue what to do once a player finally closes in. Taking advantage of a practice server will go a long way towards breaking this bad habit though. If you haven't guessed, my recommendation for this is V-Arena. Also, shout out to my buddy Quills. I actually didn't have a clip for that example, and he came in clutch at like 1 AM. Kind of funny he was on too, since we go back to pre-Loom officials. Anyway, back to the topic. As you practice and get comfortable with muscle memory for your keybinds though, be careful with going too heavily in the opposite direction. While it can be fun and incredibly intoxicating to just W key in and try to strictly outpace your opponent, that isn't always the right answer. I know a lot of players would call blasphemy at that, but when you don't heavily outskill your opponent, there's benefit in holding a tighter lid in your cooldowns. Lastly, for this topic, I want to give a reminder to those using the practice server to improve. Don't think your gains made on the practice server will always smoothly translate to a regular one. It's easy to get sucked into a practice server and play solely there for the excitement, but in the end, it's exactly what it's meant to be. Practice. When you fight with resources or pride on the line, you can count on nerves kicking in and affecting your play. The good news is that too will eventually go away as long as you find a balance between the practice and your home server. Something else to mention is you should always treat any PvP server, not intended for practice of course, pretty much like the Wild West. Which means if you're on a private server, aside from the server rules, pretty much anything goes. Potting, running away, ratting, ganking, you name it. You may have your own thoughts or morals around this, and that's fine and respectable. Play how you want to, but I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't convey that most of the PvP community, the serious ones at least, the only thing they care about is getting the W. Let's get into CDR management. Vrising PvP is a game of trades. The player that blocks, avoids, or sustains damage while dealing damage of their own better than their opponent is pretty much always going to win. Because of that, you'll find that all but the bravest of players are typically going to run at least one defensive spell in their build. Some players even opt to run 2 defensives, as having the extra cooldown to burn can be very forgiving. In the current state of the game, SLS has also given us 3 iframe weapon abilities. These are Slasher Q, Pistol E, and Greatsword E. If you don't know, the weapons in Vrising share cooldown between their E and Q abilities respectively, so you'll never be able to pop Pistol E and Greatsword E back to back, for example. thank God. When playing correctly between defensive spells, weapon iframes, and your invulnerable dash, you should almost always have an answer for your opponent. Open world circumstances aside, it really just comes down to discipline and how comfortable you are with your own binds. Knowing when you want to use your defensive options in favor of your offensive ones, and more importantly, tracking what defensives your opponent does or doesn't have, takes time and experience. There will always be mistakes in the heat of battle, but trust me, remembering to be conscious of this will significantly improve your gameplay. For a tip, don't forget about that animation cancel button from earlier. If you find yourself making a mistake and popping a defensive spell too early, for example, you can go ahead and cancel it and jumpstart the CDR timer.
Please, where are you going? There we go. There we go. Oh. Yes.
All right.
Next, let's talk about cancel faking. Alright guys, great job making it this far. From here we're going to start to get into some of the higher level tactics. Once you've gotten to a certain level of comfortability in PvP, the game kind of shifts to a point to where you're often just trying not to make a mistake by, burning something you shouldn't. Cancel faking is a tool that can be easily overlooked, but remembering to do this can be devastating for your opponent. Especially doing so while practicing good CDR management, as it's going to make it very hard for your opponent not to burn their own important cooldowns while fighting you. We touched on canceling spell abilities a moment ago, but outside of that, you can also do this with weapons, which arguably yields better results when you're intended to cancel fake. The weapon abilities you can fake without burning a cooldown are going to be Slasher Q and Greatsword Q for the Q abilities, followed by Spear E, Axe E, Sword E, Reaper E, Crossbow E, and Greatsword E for the E abilities. Something to also note is that in addition to these abilities, you can also cancel a regular pistol or crossbow auto, which just happens to be one of my favorite ways to do it. Doing this at the right time can make or break a high level fight, or allow you to quickly steamroll past a less disciplined player's defenses. Getting your opponent to bite on a fake has a lot to do with not only the timing of when you use it, but also how long you let the animation drag for the skill or ability you're faking with. Learning the timing to cancel at the last possible animation before it goes off will trip up a lot of players. Slasher Q, Crossbow E, and Greatsword E are the hardest ones to do this with, since their starting animation is so short. But because of that, you'd be surprised at how many high level players will bite simply because they don't expect you to take the risk. Be careful though, doing these too frequently can open you up to easy punish as well. However, if you work out a good flow for this, you'll quickly become a headache for anyone looking to kill you in an isolated fight. Now that we've covered mindset, CDR management, and cancel faking, it's time to cover spacing and movement. You may have noticed we've touched on aspects of this earlier in the video, but it's deeper than just maintaining a balance between W or S keying in a fight. Learning proper spacing ties in with CDR management and is something I believe strictly comes from game knowledge and experience, but I'm going to do my best to relay what I know. Those of you familiar with MOBAs like League of Legends or Dota will have an advantage in understanding this, but partly what I'm talking about when I say spacing is fighting within and outside of the spell and weapon ability range of your opponent. In high-level solo and team fights alike, you'll often see skilled players doing what I like to call the yo-yo effect as they work in and out of this phantom danger zone. We saw this a lot in the recent V-Arena tournament. Each team was rotating members in that yo-yo-like effect to not only throw off enemy aggro, but also to dance in and out of that danger zone range. They were firing off their own skills before backing out to make sure they weren't at risk of taking free damage from the enemy. This zone applies to auto attacks as well. Skilled players will quickly shift between crossbow, pistol, and spear autos for free damage as the distance changes.
Time out. Where'd all my health go?
Hey guys, Post-Edit Grim here. I don't really know what was up with me in this clip. Guessing I was just coming off of a Lord of the Rings binge or something, but just focus on the PvP here, okay? It's not what I said. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. It's true that in certain matchups, it's hard, if not almost impossible, to always be outside of that danger range. As we saw in the championship rounds of the tourney, Geo, one of our tournament winners, ran Crystal Lance, which has a very long range compared to other spells, and it pretty much made him a constant threat. Unless you're running Lightning Curtain or another defensive, the best option you have when in a situation like this is always going to be active and unpredictable movement. These guys are dancing right now. Pay attention to how they're rotating out. They're doing a good job of making sure they're keeping aggro spread apart. A lot of players will choose to burn Dash or Greatsword Q when gap closing or even just engaging a fight, but honestly, in most cases that's a mistake. Unless you've got someone doing the S key shuffle we mentioned earlier, your best bet is to just walk. In fact, holding your dash until your opponent burns theirs will usually give you an upper hand, since they'll be forced to either eat an auto or burn another cooldown to prevent taking damage. Now, when I say walk, I'm not talking about literally just running at them in a straight line here. What you want to do is inch your way forward while spacing and taking advantage of their lapses in rhythm or cooldowns. The rest of the time, you want to be maintaining a zigzag or circular movement to dodge and throw off their aim. I can't stress enough how getting comfortable with this can help you, especially when you yourself are caught out with no defensives. You'll be surprised at what you can get out of and the amount of fights you can actually turn around by escaping while they blow their cooldowns trying to catch you.
Oh my god. Please.
Expanding further on movement, judging whether you should push in or back out can actually be a great tool to round you out as a fighter. Pushing in until you're literally 2 inches away from your opponent is one of my favorite things to do during a fast-paced fight. Your goal when getting into this tight position should always be to constantly try and circle to the enemy's back to try and confuse and outmaneuver them while landing your own attacks. I might be a little biased with this style of play since rogue and other high mobility play styles are my go-to, but when you combine this with all the other aspects we've touched on today, you can truly create a perfect storm and overwhelm your opponent.
What? Are you fucking kidding me?
Enjoy that silence too, buddy.
Dude.
Hello? Spear Cube?
Dude, what is that? Oh, behind me? Yeah, okay.
Bro, you planning on hitting him or?
Bro, I just can't. I'm so bad right now. And I just keep countering the same, like proccing the same jewel shit. And then it cancels. Yeah, okay, buddy.
Soul burn?
And that's going to conclude today's video, guys. Hopefully there was something here for new and experienced players alike. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below which topics resonated with you the most. This is GrimXV, signing off.